Fear.
Okay, says the Mishnah on Chaf Dalit Amid Beis. Chaf Dalit Amid Beis says the Mishnah. Marchikin es, we're discussing Harchokas Nesikin, and we say Marchikim es hagoyrin kavua min ha'ir. If you have a goyrin, a granary, where you're going ahead and you're separating the wheat from the chaff, and it's kavua. You have to go ahead and distance it from the city 50 amas. You have to distance from the city 50 amas. A second in, layasa adam goyrin kavua b'toich shaloi. A person should not make a goyrin kavua, a goyrin that's going to be there all the time, b'toich shaloi in his property, right? Elam kain yesh lechamishem amal l'chol ruach. Each direction he has 50 amos. Umarchik min etiyosav shel chaveroi. He should distance his goyrin from the trees of his friend, and Mainiroi, and from his plowed field, even though there's no growth, the plowed field. Bichdei shlo yazik, the shear of bichdei shlo yazik, the shear of in order that it shouldn't do damage. The Gemara is going to ask, the you have the Reisha says 50, and the Sefer says the shear of kadesh yazik, which is mashma, it's variable. Oh, Meya Asha, great to see you. Baruch Reif Chaylam. Baruch Reif Chaylam, it's great to greet Meya Asha. Meyash, we got a new Balkaira. Ari was great. Anyway, says the Gemara, Maishna Reisha, where it says 50 amas, Maishna Seif, it says Bichdei Shiyazik. Amra Baya.
Can I ask where we are?
No. I agreed with you. I said hello. I welcome you back. That's it. You can leave now. You know. Okay, man. In Besechta Baba Basra. You walked into that. I'm sorry.
I know. I'm sorry. Yeah.
It was a layup.
It's fine.
It was a slam dunk. It wasn't even a layup.
Fine.
Anyway, Chaf Dalit Amid Beis. We're doing the Mishnah, and we just finished the Mishnah, and we're up to the Gemara. So the Gemara is, the Mishnah had commented, you have a granary, you should distance it 50 amas. Then it says, again, from your friend's trees and different things, the shear kadesh yaz. What's the difference of the shear? When do you say 50 amas? When you say the shear, the amount that it shouldn't do damage. So Amar Abaye, say for us in the goyrin she'ena kavua. In other words, the seif is not speaking about a goyrin kavua; it's speaking about a goyrin ena kavua, which I guess it's ena kavua. You won't have the tremendous amount of chaff that you will by a goyrin kavua. Says the Gemara, Hekidami goyrin she'ena kavua. Amar Rabbi Yosef Chanina. Kol she'ena zayreya barachas. But you don't go ahead and use a device. You don't use some type of rachas. I guess they would use it to winnow. Rav Ashi Amar, Matam Kamar. Rav Ashi says the seif is giving an opinion of the Reisha. It's not two cases. It's not the Reisha speaking about kavua and the seif is speaking again. The kavua is speaking about two distinct different cases. It's speaking about one case. The reason why the seif is giving the reason why you should not, you have to distance 50 amas. What's the reason? In order that it shouldn't do damage. Matam Kamar. Matam, what's the reason? What's the reason you go ahead and separate the goyim from the city? 50 amas. In order that it shouldn't do damage. So it's not a shear like the Kadesh Yazik. It's a reason, it's a tam. The reason why you distance in the first place is what? That it shouldn't do damage. Because again, you get all that stuff. Today, we're going to ask a kasha. You distance a goyrin, a kvua from the city, 50 amas. So too you distance midloyov, that's a field of Deluin, and umikshaisav, it's kishuas, gourds, umatiyosav, and field, and the trees, umeniroi, shalchaveroi, and the plowed field of his friend, chamishim ama, kedesh leyazik. In other words, and we gave the shear of 50 amas here as well. And what's the reason? In order to do damage. Bishlam Ravashi Nicha. Vel Ravashi is very good. El Labaya Kasha. Labaya, it's fair, right? Labaya is saying that there's a shear Kadesh Yazik. It said over here in the Brisa, it said 50 amas. So Bishlam Kasha. Says El Labaya Kasha. It says Kasha. Einach Nami is fair. It's fair Labaya is Pshat. Bishlam Mikshaisav, Umdalaisav. We understand why the chaff should go ahead and separate from fields of growing products. What's going to happen is the chaff is going to go in, it's going to go into the kishkis and it's going to dry out the crop. So I understand. It says from the field that's been plowed over, that's not planted. What's the reason that you should separate 50 amas. After all, there's no crops there that's going to spoil the field. So Rav Abba bar Zavda v'ithim Rav Abba bar Zutra mifnei Amid Aleph she'oisa oisa golol. It makes it golol, makes it fertilizer. Let's see Taisus here. She'oisa oisa golol. Afagav the golol mishabeach hakarka. Even though fertilizer goes ahead and it improves the ground. Kishihi kuloi golol mazik. When it's all golol, it goes wide and it does damage. So what's going to happen here is this: by this stuff floating into the other field, it's going to make the whole field like fertilizer, and therefore it's not good for the field, and therefore you have to separate 50 amas. Another din hachokas nezikin. Marchikin es hanevelois. You go ahead and you machik from dead corpses of animals. There's hakvarois, and from graves. There's haburski and the tannery minoir. Chamishim ama. You have to distance 50 amas. All these Rashi says mishum reach ra. It's because of a negative smell. It's because of negative smell. I think buddies speak out over here. So they give a reason in Yeridea. Lavush says the reason why you should separate 50 amas from a grave is that people shouldn't go see that and get despondent, or kohanim should not become tamei. But it's a little shver because the Gemara says the reason is because of ruach ra. In other words, we're lumping it together with nevelis and burski. Nevelis and burski is the reason of a smell. So kfaris, what kind of smell is? We're speaking when there's no reach. Let's say you go ahead and you go ahead and bury them very deep, where there's not going to be any smell of decay. That's where the Ber Hativ says in Shulchan Aruch. So it gives a reason that where there's no smell, you distance yourself anyway. In other words, if it's at a level where you could smell the mace, so it's fit right. What about it's a level you can't smell the mace? So that's the reason in Shulchan Aruch that the Lavush gives a reason, another reason that people shouldn't be upset, or kahanim. That's in other words, the kasher is on Shulchan Aruch. Well, why do they give the reason when the Gemara says this reason? Clearly, from this Gemara, we're lumping it together with a burski, and you lump it together in the velas, it's reich ra. When would there be a reich ra of a mace? That's if it's not buried too deep, and therefore you possibly can smell it. But if it's buried deep, then what's the reason you should separate? So these noisei kalim of the Shulchan Aruch, they give the reason either because of atzvus or because of what? Because of tumul kahanim. Back in the Gemara. So marchikin es and the velas is akvaris is aburti min ear chamishim ama. Einoisim burski elu mizrach ear. You only make a burski in the mizrach of the city. It seems to be a machloikas Rashi and Taisus here. Rashi says that the east wind is not a very strong wind, so it's not going to go ahead and bring the odor. Taisus says that the west wind is very strong. So if you make it in the east, the west wind is going to go ahead and sweep the smell away. It's going to knock it in another direction. Rabbi Kiva Omer l'chol ruach u'oisa. You can make it in any direction, chutz mimarava, with the exception of the west. Umarchik chamishim amma, and you distance 50 amas. The Gemara is going to ask what Rabbi Kiva's shita is. Umarchikin ves hamishim min yerek. You go ahead and distance the soaking flax from the yerek. We had this earlier in the Masechta, fellas. The es hakrishim and the leek min abetzelim from the onions, and of course, you're going to remember this. There's the chardul min adavorim and the mustard seed from the bees. Because the bees eat the mustard and they get thirsty and they go back and they eat their honey. Rabbi Yosef Mate Bechardol, he said, listen, just like we spoke at the Gemara there, just like your bees are, my bees are being mafsik, just like you're being mafsik, my chardol is being mafsik, your bees are eating up my chardol, so it works both ways. Okay, now Rabbi Akiva said a statement, he said 50 amas. What's the story? Iboilu. This is speaking about a burski. You can make it in any direction. The saimich chutz mimaracha, with the exception of maracha. The marchik nun ama ba'oisa. In other words, every other direction doesn't have to be 50 amas, but the west has to be 50 amas. East, north, and south have to be 50. Chutz mi'arava, but the west ain't always a cloud. So the shiloh is, when he said 50 amas, was it going on the west or was it going on all the others? If it's going on the west, then the others you don't have to be marchik at all. If it's going on all the others, then the west, even 50 is not going to work. So what's the din? Tashma the Tanya. To every ruach he can put the borski north, south, and east. You can't do it at all if they shoot tadira, because it's tadira. Now what's tadira? Amalei usually means often. Amalei Rav Nachman my tadira. Ilema tadira beruchais. If you're telling me it's the wind that blows the most often. There are 4 ruchais that blow every single day. The ruach tzfainis and kulan, and the ruach tzfainis accompanies all of them. Shomale came without the ruach tzfainis accompanying them. Eino oilam miskayim. The world would not exist. So afilu sha'achas. The ruach joim is kashem kulan, and the south wind is the most difficult of all. Bilema ben nates, vilmali ben nates, and if not for the malach that's called ben nates, he looks like a hawk malach, hawk angel. Shemamidim. It would go ahead and stop the south wind. Machreva says oilam, it would destroy the world. Shnemar, Eob says, "Miminascha ya'ber nates, from your wisdom, ya'ber nates, the nest nates that spreads its limbs. Yifresh knaf of the taimon, and it spreads its wings to the south to stop the." So, if you're telling me Tada means the most common, it can't be, because the north is the most common, guys. The north is the most common, not the west. Elamai tadira b'shrina. It's tadira means the shrin is there all the time. Now we're going to go ahead and go a whole daf now about ruchas, guys. A whole amid about ruchas. Again, we don't understand the koiches of ruchas, but it's another digression in a mesechta of digressions. Right? Another digression, mesechta of digressions. So it seems the shrina is in the west, and therefore, fellas, you should not put. Rabbi Kiva says, don't put a burski in the west, because that's where the shrina is. That's where the shrina is. Let's go ahead and be makatov to our chacham, in this case the Anshe Knesset Hagadayla. Sheidiu makom tefila. They told us where to daven. They told us the place to daven. It says utzva hashemayim lecha mishtachavim, and that the sun. It says and the armies of shemayim lecha to you mishtachavim. So the sun goes from east to west, and the mishtachve in the west. Mashma the mishtachve to the west. So the Gemara asks right away, by Maskal Ravacha Bayaka with Dilma Ke'evet Shnoitel Prasmei Rabbi v'Choisel Achoyrov mishtachve. Maybe they're going ahead and they're bowing. Rashi says they're bowing to the east. Maybe they're bowing to the east. Rashi says Vidilma, a little bit up, guys. By Vidilma heim lemizrach mishtachavim. The chitem ein derech l'shtachvei samach l'rav. Right? They took their gift from their master. They walk backwards. And as they're going back, they bow down. So maybe they're bowing down to the east. And that Gemara says ain't not going to be kosher. That's shver. Now this whole Gemara is interesting because we all know from the time we're born, we always daven where? Towards Yerushalayim. We always daven, no matter you always daven to Yerushalayim. So when you're in New York, we're davening to the east. Where's Mizrach, right? So obviously this Gemara is not saying that. So you look at Tosfos. Tosfos says the Chol Ruchsa Ukman, Kol Hanim Amaroi, the fifth title down. All these Amaroyim, Les Lahu Hadetanya B'Brachas. They don't hold a bat of the Bryson Masech the Brachas. Shechayev Adam L'Spalel Neged Yerushalayim. That a person is supposed to daven Keneged Yerushalayim. Mishum Dechsiv Ispalu Eilecha Derech Artzom. Alasavi Rabbi Yishmael, they hold like Rabbi Yishmael, Damar, the Chol Mokim Shechina, the Shechina is any place. So in other words, these ones who hold that the Shechina is anywhere would say you could daven in any direction because the Shechina is there. Damar Shechina b'Ma'ariv, Savak Rabbi Akiva, the Amar Mefnei Shei Tadira, Rabbi Chanina the Shmaitz. In other words, so according to Rabbi Shmuel, any direction. According to Rabbi Akiva, you have to daven to the west, right? Rabbi Chanina the Shmaitz, that we're going to meet on the Amid Beis. The Amar going Usan, like us, the Yasmin Litzfaina, the Arad Yisrael, we're in the north of Eretz Yisrael. So Adrima Savala Kibraisa de Brachas. They hold like the Adrima, you go from the north to the south, they hold like Amang Brachas. So again, just to answer your question that you're thinking about, if you're thinking that we always daven mat to the east is because we don't pass like this Gemara. This Gemara, there's different shittas. Again, according to Rabbi Kiva, you should daven to the west. According to Rabbi Shmuel, you can daven in any direction. According to Rabbi Chanina, you daven towards Eretz Yisrael. Therefore, when you're in Bavel in the north, you daven to the south. And here in New York, you're going to daven to the. In New York, you're going to daven to the east. Okay, that's what. Rabbi Shia back in the Gemara. Rabbi Shia saw the Shechina b'chol makom. The Shechina is everywhere. Like Rabbi Shmuel, don't Rabbi Shia. My dechsiv atu Hashem levadecha atu asisa es hashemayim utzara hashemayim l'chol mishtachavim. Right? Shluchecha loike shluchei bas v'dam. Your shlichus HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not shluchei bas v'dam. Now picture this, guys. If a guy sends you on a mission, so the halacha is that you're supposed to go ahead and tell the person that you did the mission. So you would go and you come back to where he sent you from and find him there. HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends you on a mission, you don't have to go back because he's there already. So therefore, you know he's b'chol makom. Says the Gemara, the shlich of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not like bas v'dam. Shluchei bas v'dam b'makom shlem mishtachavim, the place that you send him from, l'sham machzirim shluchasam. There they go back. Ava shluchecha l'makom, the shlichus of the makom, the malachim, shemishtalchim misham, that where they sent him from, machzirim shluchasan, right? Where they return the shlichus. Shnemar hatishalach birakim v'yelchu v'yomru l'cha hinenu yavu v'yomru le'nemu. It doesn't say they'll come and they'll tell you. V'yelchu v'yomru. They'll go and tell you. They'll go because you're on the way wherever you go. They're there. Shnemar, as it says, she'ashchina b'chol makom. Malamed she'ashchina b'chol makom. You understand? It says they'll go v'yelchu and they'll tell you. What do you mean they'll tell you? They'll tell you because they don't have to return. Wherever they're going, they'll tell you. So the shechina is b'chol makom. The Af Rabbi Shmuel Sava shechina b'chol makom. Even Rabbi Shmuel, who we met in Taisus already, holds the shechina is b'chol makom. The Tanya, the Rabbi Shmuel, minayin shechina b'chol makom. How do you know the shechina is everywhere, right? And not in one direction more than the other. Shnemar, hine. Now this is very interesting. If you look at Rashi gives us this in the Nevuah of Zechariah. So let's do it before we do the pasuk. It says v'hine hamalach hadavid b'yetz. Go up a little bit. The Nevuah of Zechariah lamud es Yerushalayim kama archa, that the malach is going to measure Yerushalayim. Umalach acher yoytze lista shlichusa shel Rishayim, and a second malach came along to circumvent the other one. Shechaza b'yamakom v'layitim b'midah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said that there's no boundary. Don't give a boundary. In other words, the first malach was supposed to measure, and the second one was Hashem said, no, let's change it. No measurement, no boundary. For Omar, Prozos Teshav Yerushalayim. It should be right. V'hari shneim me'es hashchina boyim. V'achro le'nemar el l'krosle zeh b'mikam zeh b'mikan. So now back in the makes sense now. Shneimar hine. It says over here the pasuk in Zechariah, right? We have this pasuk in Zechariah that says, "Hine hamalach hadoive b'yoytze." The malach who spoke with me came from Hashem. Umalach acher yoytze l'krosle, and another malach that came from Hashem came towards him. Achro levnem. It doesn't say he came after him, right? It doesn't say he followed the first guy. El l'krosle. That he means he came towards him. So they both coming from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and nonetheless, right? So they consider coming to each other. So obviously, what? Fellas, look, this one's coming this way, and does say another one came from behind. This one's coming this way, and they're both coming from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This one to do with shlichus, and this one to do with shlichus. So obviously, Hashem must have been over here and over here. That's the. Okay. Even Rav Sheshes holds like Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Shia that the shechina is any place, not more place than the other. The Amalei Rav Sheshes the Shammai. Rav Sheshes said to his Shammai. Now remember, Sheshes is blind. Rav Sheshes wanted to be like his Rebbe Rav, and he became blind. It says what? L'chol ruchasa ukmin levarmi mizrach. He said, stand me up to daven. I'll daven in any direction except mizrach, which is fascinating, right? He davened to the mizrach. Any except mizrach. But la mishum gles be'shchina. It's not because the shchina is not there. El mishum the moira b'mine is because the minim, the mitalmidei yeshvu noitzrim, they would go ahead and and daven, pray to the east. So therefore, he didn't want to go ahead and daven to the east. That's Rav Sheshes. Rav Avo Amar Shchina b'Mayriv. He says like Rabbi Akiva that the Shchina is in the west. Then Rav Avo my Uriah. When it says the word Uriah, what's the etymology of the word Uriah? is Avir Ya. It's what? It's the ear of Ka. It's the ear of Hashem. So guys, picture this. If you look at Rashi, Rashi says beautifully, in the second, it's parallel to the Gemara a little bit. Ani Shamati Kach Korin Lamayev B'Lashon Parsi, they call the west, Uriah, they call it Uriah. V'linira Shekach Korin Lemizrach B'Lashon Laz. V'hainu Dekama Avir Ka, Shashchina B'Mayrev, Upanov Lemizrach, Nimsa Mizrach Aviroi. That, guys, picture Hashem over here. This is the west, right? This is the east. So Avir Ka, the ear of Hashem is facing, Kaviyachli is facing this way. So the ear of Hashem is the east. So that's how you get Avir Ka. So the male, if the ear of Hashem is the east, where is Hashem? He's in the west. If the ear of Hashem is the east, the Shir is the west. Taisus brings, why don't you learn out that in the Beis Hamikdash, the Kodesh Kedoshim was in the west, and the Shechina was by the Aron, correct? The Shechina was by the Aron, and the Kodesh Kedoshim was in the west. If you Beis Hamikdash, you walked in east to west. And Taisus brings that it was in the west, but the Aron was the east of the Kodesh Kedoshim. It was Klape the east. So therefore you have no raya. That's why they didn't bring the Beis Hamikdash in, because even though the Aron was located in the west, right? Even though the Aron was located in the west, nonetheless, it was drawn a little bit to the east. Okay, now the Gemara is going to darshan Parshas Hazinu. So if you look at Rashi, Yaroif Kamato Likhi, we're going to darshan this pasuk, guys. Moshe Rabbeinu Dima es haTorah la'aba ruches. Moshe Rabbeinu compared the Torah to the four winds. Kishem she'ef shebleihem, just like you can't have the four winds. Kachiyef she'lo'olam b'lei Torah. So the song of Hazinu, which is according to this Gemara, is compared to the ruchos, and therefore, just like you can't have the ruchos for the world to exist, the world can exist without Torah. So let's start from the beginning of Hazinu. Rabbi Huda, my dechsiv, Ya'aroif kamato lechi. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, what he teaches should drip like rain. Zu ruach ma'aravis. This is the west wind. Shebor me'orfa shel olam. It comes from the oirif. It comes from the back of the. It comes from the back. The east is considered the front. The west is considered the back. Tizal katal imrasi. My words they should go ahead, and they clean like the dew. Zu ruach tzfainis. This is the ruach tzfainis. It makes gold cheap, because this wind, what it does is it causes famine, and as a result, food is very expensive. So that makes gold very cheap. Those who spend their gold freely, right, from their pocketbook. Like winds which blow, like sear as a wind blows desha. Zu ruach Mizrachis. This is the Ruach what? Mizrachis. This is the Mizrachis, right? That Misaris is Kol Olam Kasayr. It goes ahead and it riles up the world like a demon. Now, L'chayra, we said in the Mishnah, at least that the east wind is very soft, right? And that's why you could put, according to Rashi, you could put a Bursky in the east. So look at the bottom of Taisus. Ruach Mizrachis Seres Kol Olam Kulai, which mashma that the east wind is very shver. The Mishnah is mashma, the east wind is not shver at all. It says Gemara, then it's very easy. Mikola Ruchais, Hainu Kishehi Bo Kedarka, when it's normal. Alo Kishebo Lepronius, when it comes to for retribution, to punish the world, he misa eres, Kidapirish Bekunchis Mastisan. So very geschmack. So again, the east wind can be very soft, it also can be very, very destructive. Finally, Ukarivivim Ale Esev, like the Revivim, the showers on the Esev. Suruach Troimis, this is the south wind. Shimaila Revivim Kamagdel Sasav. Again, it brings up what? It causes things to grow. It causes things to go. Now, the next piece of Gemara, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to quote a whole brisa. The second part of the brisa is speaking about Ruchis. The whole reason we're quoting the first part of the brisa is because of the latter part of the brisa. The first part of the brisa speaks about a person on the horizon and looking at the sun and speaking how the sun goes up and through different things. It's a very difficult concept for me to grasp. There are pictures in the art scroll if you want to see it. I'm going to go through it quickly because really we need it for the second part. Anyway, Tanya, Rabbi Eliezer says, Olam, the world, is l'achsadra hu doim. It's like an achsadra. Now, we said an achsadra was open on three sides. It's open on all four sides. There was an opinion. It's open on three and open on. It's closed on three and open on four. According to this opinion, the achsadra, it's going to be closed on three sides and open on the fourth side. And on the fourth side is where I guess the sun goes down. Ruach tzfainis eina moisaveves, and the north wind does not go ahead around it. Once the sun gets to the northwest corner, it turns around. It goes above the rakia. Again, this is beyond my pay scale in terms of partial understanding it. It's like a tent. It's all closed, and therefore it doesn't enter. It doesn't enter at all. According to Rabbi Eliezer, it enters. According to this, it doesn't enter at all. And the north wind is therefore is in other words, according fellas, the first pshat that there's an opening, then the north wind is able to get out. According to this pshat that it's enclosed, the north wind is stuck inside. When the sun gets to the northwest corner, it goes around and it passes behind the kippah. Shenemar. Again, if the art school has a long page on this with some nice pictures, you're welcome to go ahead and do it on your own time. Says the Gemara, Shenemar, because it says, Hoylech el Dorim b'soivet el Tzafain. It goes in the south, it circles to the north. Okay. Hoylech el Dorim b'yoim b'soivet Tzafain ba'layla. In other words, if you're standing over here, it's always going to go around the sun, and it's going to go from south to west. Not that it's in the winter it rises here, and the summer rises over here. It goes over here. You look at the picture there. I don't know if it makes any sense to you. Okay, weiter. Rabbi Yeshua goes ahead and he says, "Soidev soilev hoylech haruach," goes around and around. Aval svivoisav shav haruach. Elu pnei mizrach upnei ma'ariv. It's the eastern face of the sun, the western face of the sun. Shepomim misafton. Sometimes it goes around during the winter. Upomim alachon. Sometimes wide it goes into the summer. Again, you know that there's certain. If you're standing there where you're standing, it'll appear in the winter on this side of you and the summer on this side of you. Who are you? He would say, this is on the axis that the sun goes ahead and shines on different parts of the world depending on the axis. So us and Rabbi Kiva, this goes back to Rabbi Eliezer. This goes to Rabbi Eliezer that there was an opening and it wasn't closed. Min hacheder tavu safa. From the cheder comes the sufa. Zurach druamis. Good. Okay, this is what we need, guys. This is now we're going back to the winds. That's why we brought in the first pshat. Min hacheder tavu sufa. From the cheder, from the room comes this wind. Zurach druamis is the south wind. Mimzorim kara, and comes the cold from Mimzorim. I don't know exactly how to type Mimzorim. Okay, from Mimzorim. Ruach tzfaynish shekoisel, Rashi says, Tosfos Pirsh, Ruach tzfaynish shekoisel shala mushlach kleima she'ena mesabeves Rabbi Eliezer. It doesn't. The cold comes from the fact that the north wind does not get to that area. I guess I'm not sure. Again, I'm a lost. Minishmas al yitin kerach, from the breath of Hashem He gives ice. Suruach marabis, this is the west wind. Roichav mayim b'mutzuk, and the wind comes with strength. Suruach misrachis, it's the east wind. Now we have a stira. Ba'amar, Rabbi Yehuda says, Ruach troimis ma'ila revivu magdela seya. He said that it causes growth, and here you're saying that it causes destruction, right? No, excuse me. There you said that it's the south wind, and here you say it's the east wind. Like Hasha, ha da'asya mitra b'nichusa. When it comes gently, that comes from the south. Ha b'shib b'nichusa. When it comes very strong, then it comes from the east. Amar Chisna Maidich said, Mitzafin zahav, from the north, gold will come. Surach tzafinish, shemazeles esazav. We spoke out, it makes famine, so gold is cheap. V'chein oimer, hazalim zahav mikis. Amar Rafram bar Papa, Amar Rav Chisda, Yom Shechar Beis Hamikdash, from the time the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, like Hukshama Ruach Truaimis, the south wind wasn't filled with rain. Shnemar by Yigzar al Yamin V'Roev, he went ahead and he was geyser on the Yamin Roev, and there was hunger. By Yochel al Smoiloi V'Loi Saveyu, he goes ahead and he eats by the left, V'Loi Saveyu. They won't be satiated. Uksiv Safin v'yamin atabarasam. North and right, you created them. It doesn't come down from a good place. Shenemar, Yiftach Hashem leches Eitzrei HaToiv. Hashem will open up His good storehouse for you. This much Yisrael Oisim Ritzayin Hashem Makoim. Yisrael Shul Masam. When we're doing what we're supposed to do, and we're doing in Eretz Yisrael, Yishavim Yoidim Yoitzer. They come down from this good place. This man Shein Yisrael Shul Masam. Ein Geshavim Yoidim Yoitzer Toiv doesn't come out from a good place. Okay. Anyway, says the Gemara right. Don't repeat Yitzchak. Haroitza Sheyachkim Yadrim. Person wants to become smart. When he davens, he should daven to the south. Ushayasher, and when he wants to get wealthy, Yatzmin, he should daven to the north. The Simonechet, that you should make a mistake. Shulchan B'tzafin, the Shulchan, that's your Parnasa, B'tzafin is in the north. Uminoyer B'darim. So you won't get mixed up that the Shulchan, which is Parnasa, is in the north. Yeshua ben Levi Omer, La'olam Yadrim, a person should always daven to the south. Because once you get smart, you'll get wealthy. So you'll get long life if you have your Torah in your right hand, meaning you'll learn Torah, and therefore maybe with your left hand you'll get wealthy. But Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi Amar Shrina b'Ma'ariv, if he said the Shrina what is in the Ma'ariv, it's in the west, and over here it's Mashra that you should pay to the south. How can you pay to the south if the Torah is in the west? If the Shrina is in the west, says the word the mitzvah to do that. You should daven southwest. Amalei Chanil Rabbi Ashi. We who live in the north of Eretz Yisrael, maybe we should face the south towards Yerushalayim, which is what, again, this is what we do. The bubble is fine Eretz Yisrael. Kaima bubbles in the north of Eretz Yisrael. Because the pasuk says, from the north, the Ra will come. I'll call Yosh Eretz. So you see that this is the speaking about the Chaldeans, the Babylonians who attacked from the north. Okay, we said this we had before. Marchikim es mishra min hayerek. You distance what the mishra from the yerek and the karshinim from the betzalim and the chardal from the devorim. So Rabbi Yossi disagreed with the chardal, right? Says the Gemara, Tana Rabbi Yossi mate bechardal to plant mustard seeds. Sheyachalaima, he could tell the owner of the beehive, right? Sheyachalaima. Go ahead and distance your chardal from my bees. Go ahead, distance your bees from my chardal, because they're eating up my chardal. The glue chardal, they come and eating the flowers of the plant. So since they can say that, okay, let's do the Mishnah. You distance an elan from a bar, 25 amas. Because again, their roots are very deep. So we know they're very leafy and they're very deep. We said regarding the Noi of the city, 50 amas, we said regarding their roots. Bein mil maila, it doesn't make a difference whether the bar is above or below. Bein min atzad. Or ima bar kadma. If the bar was first, you go ahead and cut down the tree, v'nois and damin. Now it's interesting, the bar came first, so you did something wrong. You planted the tree when you shouldn't have, so kites is nice and damim. Then elam kaidim, and if the tree was first, lo yi kites. You don't cut down the tree. After all, you were there first. Suffix that kaidim suffix that kaidim lo yi kites. Don't cut it down. Even if the bar is first, lo yi kites. Even if the bar is first, so seemingly the other person did something wrong. The bar was first, and your tree is growing in. Nonetheless, what? Don't cut it down. That's Rabbi Yossi's shita, that as long as it's not giri delay, it's not going to be immediate, then you go ahead, you can do it. Tana ben shabar lamata v'ilan lamaila, whether the bar is above or the elan below, and the elan's above. Ben shabar lamaila, or the bar is above v'ilan lamata. Now bishleim a bar lamata when the bar is below the elan lamaila, causes shwashe maska the bar. So if the bar is below and the elan's on top, so the roots of the tree is going to grow and damage the bar. El bar lamaila, if the bar is above the tree, elan lamata, so the roots are going to be going underneath the bar. Amai, why do you have to distance yourself? So I'm Rav Chaga b'shem Rabbi Yossi mifnei shemachlidim es hakarka. It weakens the karka. Umalkin karka shabar, and it's going to go ahead and weaken the karka of the bar. So I will stop over here.